What's up, everybody? I am your host, an eccentric antique collector who gets hard for old statues and doesn't give a fuck about his assistant. And that is my co-host, an evil genie who loves smoking cigarettes, granting wishes, and killing people in fucked up ways. And welcome to the Grindhouse Syndicate, where today we are talking about a truly underrated film and a special effects masterpiece that is from the 90s and packed with horror icons. Because on this episode, we are deep diving into Robert Kurtzman's Wishmaster from 1997, which was picked by one of our longtime listeners, Angie Wright. So thank you, Angie, for not only sticking with us for so long, but also submitting this awesome movie that I have never seen until now. And an interesting fact about Angie, for years, she was the only one that commented on episodes posted on Spotify. And as a matter of fact, I didn't even know you could do comments on Spotify until she started posting on them, I don't know, three and a half years ago or something. So thank you for that. We have had many short conversations over the years over there, so I always appreciate hearing from her. But anyway, Wishmaster. Man, what a fucking ride this movie was. I had no idea this movie was going to be as entertaining as it ended up being.
Yeah, this movie is one that I didn't realize I had seen a long time ago. At some point in my childhood, there's one particular scene, and I'll point it out, that really, I specifically remembered the line from it. But yeah, this thing is so I knew Robert Englund, Kane Hodder, Tony Todd, your regular big time horror movie names were in this. But there's a ton of cast members that I had no clue worked on this. This is narrated by Angus Scrum, the tall man from Phantasm, which
Yep.
I thought was a fantastic choice. You had Harry Manfredini do the score,
Yeah.
which is one of the most famous conductors in all of horror. We have Robert Kurtzman, who's a special effects fucking legend.
And Greg Nicotero.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, Robert Kurtzman actually directed this, and
Yeah.
he didn't direct a whole lot, but he's known for
Special effects, yeah.
doing amazing special effects. Yeah, you mentioned Greg Nicotero. We had K&B Effects doing the special effects on it. Produced by Wes Craven, but,
He didn't really do anything.
He was more of a
name.
Was throw his name on there.
Yeah.
Written by Peter Adkins, who did Hellraiser.
Yeah, just talked about him.
Yeah, Harry Manfredini, we just talked about Life Force. He
Yeah.
did the score for that. So many of these names we have talked about many a times on this show. It's almost like this movie was a all-star of horror fucking just cast and crew.
Yeah. Like I said, this was a first time watch for me. I was very familiar with the movie. I did know about the big cameos, kind of the bigger ones England and Hodder and stuff. But the reason I never bothered to check it out is because, I always thought the idea of a horror movie centered around an evil genie just sounded kind of awful to me. And I always assumed, because it came out in the mid to late 90s, that they would just use a ton of shitty CGI for the kills. And I was really wrong about that. I was very surprised of the movie that I seen compared to the version of it I had in my head. They do use some shitty CGI, but there are way more awesome practical effects. There's more practical effects in this than 3 normal horror films combined.
Yeah, that's actually why they went and got Robert Kurtzman to direct it, because it had so much special effects that they had to get somebody who was very familiar with special effects to do the directing. And you weren't wrong about the CGI. They do use some awful, and I complain about CGI, every now and then on the show, every time we cover a movie with any of it in it.
This is
But
bad.
some of it, stands up to the test of time. It's at least somewhat watchable, but the CGI that they do use in this is pretty bad. Like, it did not stand the test of time at all. And it's really a shame with all the talented special effects people that worked on this movie that they did have to use CGI. I mean, it's not a lot.
Yeah,
It's a lot for like a regular movie, but this movie has so many practical effects. When you balance the two out, it's way, way more practical effect heavy. But I do think that the story was way better than because I had seen this, but I didn't remember the story in detail. The story was actually, I thought, pretty good. Like, they did a really good job at doing, like, the genie story, and they do really interesting ways of, like, kills.
yeah. I think there's some pros and cons, and we'll get into that when we go over the plot because I do have some things I want to bring up about the story that are bad, and I have some things that are good. But I passed renting this thing up so many times when I
Yeah.
was younger, and the other part of it too was I knew that the sequel I didn't know there was a 3rd and 4th one, but I do remember there being a second one. I remember it being like a direct-to-video, and I was
Yeah.
like, "Oh, I was right about Wishmaster. I'm so glad I never rented it." And now I realize I was very wrong.
Yeah, I think it was Robert Kurtzman they were talking to about doing the second one while they were still finishing up the first one, and he said he ended up turning it down, and part of that decision was it ended up being a planned direct-to-video thing.
Yeah. Alright, so with that being said, are you ready to make your wish and dive into the world of Wishmaster?
I am.
Alright, let's do it.
Hello, boys and ghouls. If you want to stay up to date on what's going on with the show, talk about or submit your movie requests, or just say die, then I got good news for you. You can always find us at one of our social media accounts or our official website at Grindhouse.Horror.Pod.com, Facecrook at the Grindhouse Syndicate Horror Podcast, Instascam at grindhousesyndicate.horror.pod, and many gore, which you can always find links for in the show notes as always. And you know what I always say, the morgue, the merrier. So please subscribe or follow for alerts on new episodes. Now, back to the show, kiddies. Frights, camera, action.
And if you really love us and don't want us to summon an evil genie older than time itself that wants to wipe out the human race, give us a review. Wishmaster is a 1997 American dark fantasy horror film directed by Robert Kurtzman and produced by Wes Craven and Artisan Entertainment. It is the first installment of the Wishmaster film series and the only film in the series produced by Craven, who actually didn't have anything to do with this film. They essentially just paid him to slap his name on it to help generate some traction. It stars Tammy Lauren, Andrew Diboff, and Robert Englund, with cameos by Ted Raimi, Kane Hodder, Tony Todd, Reggie Bannister, Angus Scrimm, and many more. It was released on September 19th of 1997, had a budget of just $5 million, and a box office of $15.7 million. Honestly, I originally couldn't believe they made this movie for only $5 million. But after doing a lot of research, it makes a little more sense considering Kurtzman comes from the special effects background and he essentially hired all of his friends to help him make this movie. I did come across a lot of different things where the special effects guys really stepped up to make a lot of stuff happen, including playing extras in the movie, working late behind the scenes, off the clock on costumes. So I think that the special effects team really stepped it up to make this movie more than a $5 million movie.
Well, yeah, they said a huge, huge chunk of that money went to Wes Craven to use his name for the
Jeez.
movie too. Yeah,
Yeah, this is actually in between Scream 1 and 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they said in between essentially paying Wes Craven and it was a handful of other things, but it essentially there was not very much budget at all left over. So, bringing in like the big time mainstays in horror mostly was because he knew them and
Friends,
was
yeah.
friends with them,
Yep.
and it would help the movie out. All the special effects people, which seems to be a thing in horror, like special effects heavy movies. It seems like the special effects guys are always the unsung heroes,
Yeah.
the ones you hear about working in the basement after 12-hour days, going and spending another 6 or 7 hours in their basement working on something for the next day's shoot. So
Well,
yeah,
that's what happens when you have a passion for something. Yeah.
they always seem to be the unsung heroes, and that's awesome because I think that's kind of part of our favorite part of a lot of these movies.
So the plot follows a djinn who is a wish granting evil genie who is suddenly released from a jewel in 20th century America, who then seeks to capture the soul of a woman who accidentally set him free, thereby opening a portal and freeing his fellow djinn to inhabit and enslave the earth. So back in the mid 90s, Live Entertainment, aka Artisan Entertainment, who is known mostly for the Blair Witch Project and screwing those guys over, but they were also known for home video releases at the time. And they decided they wanted to not just make a horror movie, but make a horror franchise with a character like Freddy Krueger that they could milk for as much money as horror fans would throw at them. And this led them to hire Hellraiser sequel writer Peter Atkins, who we talked about in our Hellbound Hellraiser 2 episode. At the instruction of Artisan, Atkins was tasked with writing a screenplay about basically an evil genie using encyclopedia entries and books concerning the mythology surrounding Eastern culture and myths, which at first Atkins thought this was stupid as fuck until he started reading about the mythology behind the djinn, which really got him interested, realizing this could be pretty cool. Now, if you don't know, many sources describe the jinn as a race made by God after angels but before humans. Now, considering angels occupy heaven and humans occupy the earth, this left the jinn homeless, leaving them to wander free in the space between the two realms, which is why they have so much hatred towards mankind. Now, some of you may notice how similar this sounds to the Cenobites, which is exactly what Peter Atkins thought as well, leading him to base his main bad guy character on the Hell Priest himself, Pinhead, making him a larger-than-life, articulate master of evil. And an important thing to note here, Atkins was leaning towards Pinhead, but Artisan wanted a bad guy similar to Freddy Krueger for this planned franchise, so what we end up with here is kind of a mix of those two villains.
Yeah, he's got the like composure and
He's articulate.
he almost has this always ahead of you intelligence that Pinhead would have.
Yeah.
But he has the like charisma and
Quips.
comedic side,
Yep.
of Freddy.
So now they got a story and a scary, wisecracking villain ready to entertain audiences. They needed a director. So they reached out to somebody who was not only capable of directing the film, but was also a major horror fan and really knew what he was doing when it come to the special effects. And that man would be Robert Kurtzman, who many of you may know as the K in K&B Effects Group, which is one of the most legendary practical effects makeup studios in Hollywood. So a little bit of background on Kurtzman in case you aren't really that familiar with him. He was a lifelong horror fan, obsessed with practical effects, and in the late 80s, he left his hometown in Ohio for a career in Hollywood, where he eventually formed K&B Effects Group with Greg Nicotero and Howard Berger. These three ended up working on some of the biggest horror films ever. So I want to read off some of these movies so you can get an idea of the caliber of Kurtzman's work. Night of the Creeps, Nightmare on Elm Street 3 Dream Warriors, Evil Dead 2, Phantasm 2, Halloween 5, Tremors, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, Wes Craven's New Nightmare, the original Scream, From Dusk Till Dawn, which he actually wrote and did the effects on, The Faculty, House on Haunted Hill, 13 Ghosts, Hostel, The Devil's Rejects, Doctor Sleep, Fear Street Part 2, Misery, and I thought this was super cool because we've been working on this in the background. He was the head of the special effects makeup department for The Haunting of Hill House. So, like, half the fucking movies we've covered, this guy worked on.
Yeah, not to mention Misery, which we just did.
So yeah, the studio reaches out to him, and as soon as he hears it's about an evil genie, he immediately is like, "You've got to be fucking kidding me. This is stupid." But after reading the script, just like Atkins, he realizes this could be cool, and he could do a ton of awesome practical effects, which is the main reason he, got into movies in the first place.
As long as they don't have to make masks. And I always forget about that, the K&B, the mask.
Scream mask, yeah.
Oh, it wasn't just Scream, it was remember Michael Myers. There was a
Oh,
reason.
yeah.
They did the worst Michael Myers mask in
About that.
Halloween franchise
Yeah.
history.
So once everything falls into place, Kurtzman gets the ball rolling on production, where he then brings in his team from K&B to start designing the djinn and all the effects he wanted in the movie, hiring Tom Renone as the production special effects supervisor. I think that is what makes this movie so special. Like, right off the bat, Kurtzman decided this was going to be kind of a love letter to the horror genre, and specifically to the outrageous effects from the 1980s, which also explains why he brought in like so many legends from, that era and that time in horror to do cameos. And another thing is, did you watch the interview, the behind the scenes interview with Tom Renone?
No.
He's like got a cigar. For one, he looks like he's like 20 years old, but he's got a cigar and a scotch and a behind the scenes. It's funny, man. Check it out. So one of the biggest things this film is known for is its cameos, which feature many actors from popular horror films of the past decade or so. And the reason that he was able to pull this off was thanks to his prolific effects work in the horror genre over the years. He brought in Robert Englund to play an antique collector, which, by the way, at this time in Robert's career, he would only go on to play Freddy one more time just 5 years later in 2002 for Freddy vs. Jason.
Damn.
Yeah. So speaking of Jason, Kane Hodder appears in the film as a security guard, as well as Tony Todd, Rico Ross, known for Aliens, Joseph Pilato from Day of the Dead, Angus Scrimm, a.k.a. the Tall Man, along with Reggie Bannister from the Phantasm movies, Ted Raimi from the Evil Dead films, and of course, many others. So another thing is, there is a rumor that has been circulating since the 90s that Tom Savini also appears in this film, with many people claiming that you can see him during the pharmacy scene where Reggie Bannister's like dying. And despite Kurtzman and Savini being friends and having worked together before, Kurtzman has debunked that claim, stating that it was an extra that just got cast that looks like him.
I don't know, man. You know Tom Savini. He may have been like, I think this movie needs some work.
Well, I did, when I went back to write the plot, I did pay attention. He's one of the guys that runs to his aid when he collapses. It does look like him, but I'm pretty positive it's not him.
Yeah, I could see Tom Savini being like,
Putting on a disguise.
I could see him in an interview being like, yeah, it was me.
Yeah.
It was my idea.
It was my idea. So filming took place sometime around March of 1997 in Los Angeles, California. For some reason, I could not find an exact date. And apparently, they had many locations all over the city, which made the production very stressful and chaotic, not to mention tons of practical effects to pull off. And to make matters worse, they only had 33 days to shoot, with a 6 months window from start to finish, with a release date for September of that year.
Yeah, the interview I seen with Kurtzman talking about how little money was left over before they even began shooting this thing, and the amount of special effects, like you've seen making of and behind the scenes with special effects being shot, and how many takes and how many times, like, You have to rely on 3 or 4 people hitting the right spot. I can't imagine how stressful shooting this movie was. He said that there was very little shooting that didn't have some type of practical effect in
Yeah.
it, and it was just extremely stressful.
Yeah, looking back, Kurtzman admits that this was extremely challenging, but felt very rewarding once he saw the final film in theaters. And despite how stressful it was, overall, everyone still had a fantastic time on the shoot and worked together really well. One thing that's really apparent if you watch the behind the scenes featurette and stuff, like everybody who worked on this thing was a big horror fan. And
Yeah.
they had also worked together previously. And I think it really shows in the final product. So Wishmaster was released on September 19th, 1997, making $6 million in its opening weekend, putting it in third place behind In and Out and The Game. It finished its theater run making a total of $15.7 million against its only $5 million budget. But despite this box office success, critics mostly hated it. The Rotten Tomatoes approval rating only reached 25% with an average rating of 3.97 out of 10. One critic stated, Wishmaster searches for horror in the exploits of a supernatural being, one whose powers, at last, evidently do not include the ability to summon a compelling script. Wow.
Damn.
Peter Stack of the San Francisco Chronicle called it an extravaganza of bad special effects and worst acting.
Wow.
You, sir, are an idiot.
Yeah, maybe, like, digital effects.
Yeah.
I could definitely see you having some bad things to say about the CGI that was done in post, but good God, man, there is some incredible
Yeah.
practical effects in this thing. The fact that they got some of the things that they did done in one movie that was shot over, what, 33
33
days
days, yeah.
is insane.
Yeah, I agree. But not all reviews were bad. Critic Christopher Shield gave it a B plus and stated that considering that the Djinn itself is essentially a combination of Pinhead and Freddy, it's safe to say Wishmaster is a movie respectful of its influences. It's also respectful of its audience's intelligence, which is to say that this shocker doesn't bore us with the pretense of trying to be smart. You couldn't wish for a better low-budget fright flick. I would agree with that.
Yeah.
Now, we all know that the critics' negative opinions of a horror film don't always translate to what the audience thinks about it, and in this case, I do believe that to be true. But I think it is safe to say that back in 1997, this film kind of fizzled out for fans of the genre. And the reason why that is all comes down to timing. Because just a year before, in 1996, Wes Craven's mega hit Scream completely shifted the genre away from the kind of campy and effects heavies 80s style to a more self-aware meta style that Scream brought to the table. Audiences now wanted a sleek and stylized whodunit type slasher with fresh-faced 20-year-olds rather than another wisecracking supernatural villain, bringing along tons of unrealistic and outlandish practical effects. To the younger horror fans of the mid-90s, the 80s just weren't cool anymore.
Yeah, that's a bummer, but
Yeah.
it is interesting you say that because I actually think that the timing that this movie came out hurt it. Because I think that you can see the studio's influence behind it. One really good example is Harry Manfredini does the score, and the post credits or the end credits is a Motorhead song. That was one thing in the 90s that horror started to shift to, going from, like, extravagant, awesome scores
Yeah.
that you hear and you automatically connect to that franchise.
So, like, mainstream music.
Yep, and that getting covered up with, a popular band or a very popular song of the time.
I think Wishmaster and the Djinn would have been a far bigger success if this would have came out 7 years before.
I agree. The 90s also, and I love the original Scream, but it changed horror so much that in the late 90s, everything had the same feel. It was all
Yeah.
very clean,
Mhm.
bright shot movies. And I just kept imagining these special effects with the awesome score shot as a much darker movie, bring out that awesome score from Harry Manfredini as opposed to putting in Motorhead songs and things like that, and just this same story and the same people who worked on it, but it done in 1988.
Yeah, I agree.
Like,
100% agree.
I think it could have been such a better movie.
So, despite the lukewarm release in 1997, the film did eventually find its fan base in the home video market, which would actually shape the future of the franchise itself and launch it into cult classic territory. Artisan Entertainment released VHS versions in 1997 and 1998, along with a DVD version a few years later. And because this did so well, it led to 3 more sequels: Wishmaster 2, Evil Never Dies in 99, Wishmaster 3, Beyond the Gates of Hell in 2001, and Wishmaster The Prophecy Fulfilled in 2002, all which were direct-to-video releases. One thing to note here, neither Kurtzman nor K&B worked on any of the sequels, but I did read that they include Andrew Divoff, who returns to play the Djinn in the just the second one. I can't remember the guy who plays it in the third and fourth one, as well as featuring some more fun and awesome practical effects. So they do kind of stick with that. Now, as of 2026, there are a few different Wishmaster physical media releases done by different companies over the years, both featuring the individual films and some packaged together. I did find Wishmaster 1 and 2 recently got steelbooks, but I didn't see who put them out. And apparently, the most sought-after version is the 2017 Vestron Collector Series Blu-ray, which consists of all 4 films, as well as commentary with Kurtzman and Atkins, interviews with Kane Hodder and Ted Raimi, and it also has a making-of featurette, along with a bunch of other cool shit. And this was put out by Lionsgate on March 28th of 2017.
Yeah, for those that don't know, Lionsgate actually owns Vestron. For a long time, like, I thought Vestron was a boutique label because it was a smaller distributor back in the day. But Lionsgate bought Vestron a long time ago and all the titles under their name, but they keep it separate because it still keeps a lot of people thinking that it's one of those smaller boutique labels, but they generally do put a lot more work into
More detail.
into the interviews, like even the cinematographer for the original, they have an interview. Funny story, I have this Vestron
Oh,
release
wow.
that you're talking about. Yes, so you'll know what I'm about to say. This will ring a bell to you. I got this for a while back at Walmart, and at the self-checkout, forgot to get somebody to take it out of the plastic
Oh,
bag.
that's this movie.
Yep, and it's sat in there for a long time.
Years.
Yeah, it's been a while, and
Yeah.
I finally had to break into that thing for covering this because I
No.
was like, I have, like, the best release of this movie. I am not about to fucking stream this motherfucker. Like, I had tried with magnets. Finally, I thought I was just gonna go get the multi-tool and
Just
saw it
cut, yeah.
open, but I didn't wanna burn the slip cover that
Mm,
was over it, so after a lot of prying, I eventually broke the plastic open.
yeah. All right, so ratings. Rotten Tom, 26%. IMDb, a 5.9 out of 10. Letterboxd, a 3 out of 5. But get this, the Google average audience rating is a 4.2 out of 5, and that's from almost 100 ratings. I think it was like
Damn.
97. If you would like to watch this movie, you can currently find it streaming for free on Tubi, Plex, Pluto TV, and Amazon Prime, or you can find it for rent on YouTube, Google Play, and Apple TV for $3.99. You ready to dive into the plot?
I am.
All right. So we start off in Persia during the 12th century, where we see a sorcerer forging in flames a beautiful red gem known as a fire opal, which he plans to use to save his kingdom. We then get a bit of backstory on a mythical creature known as a jinn, or what we would call today a genie. Once in a time before time, God breathed life into the universe, and the light gave birth to angels, and the earth gave birth to man, and the fire gave birth to the jinn, creatures condemned to dwell in the void between worlds. One who wakes a jinn shall be given 3 wishes. Upon the granting of the third, the unholy legions of the jinn shall be free upon the earth. Fear one thing only in all this is fear the jinn. First time I watched this movie, I was like, damn, is that guy trying to sound like the tall man? I didn't know, like I hadn't researched, I just watched it,
Yeah.
right? And I also never realized, like, I guess that's just how Angus Scrim talks normally. It's not like a thing he does for Phantasm.
I
Does
don't
he
know.
really talk like
They
that?
may have told him to do his Phantasm thing.
I was like, God damn, this guy is trying to do a tall man impression.
I thought he was perfect
He
for
was.
narrating
It was
it.
great.
thought
I
it
didn't
was
realize it was
awesome.
him at first. So basically, what this is saying is the jinn got fucked on a place to live, which is why they want to kill off mankind and take over the earth. And all they need to do is get a human to complete 3 wishes. After the third wish is granted, it opens the portal for the whole race of the jinn to come rushing into our physical world where they're going to kill us all. And I think at this point, mankind would be like, you know what? You can fucking have it.
Yeah.
We'll take the void between 2 worlds, enjoy high inflation, climate change, dealing with fucking shit like debt and credit scores and corporations draining you everything you got.
I
I
don't
don't
know.
think we give a fuck anymore.
I'm pretty sure an evil race of demon-like genies would put together a better government.
Well, they still got to deal with climate change and a bunch of other shit. I think humans would rather just live in the goddamn void. It's probably quieter. So next we see the king making his second wish as he then says with excitement, "Show me wonders." Which, by the way, that's a stupid fucking vague wish. It's basically like, show me something cool.
Yeah.
It's like pulls out a sharper image catalog or fucking the mildly interesting subreddit. But no, the jinn's like, okay, you want to see some wonders? Let's get this party started. As we then cut to outside the king's quarters where pandemonium erupts amongst the citizens as the jinn uses his magic to cause pure chaos. We then see a man get sucked into a wall, quickly morphing into the wall itself. A woman turns into a tree, just like that little guy from Guardians of the Galaxy.
I thought the same.
Yep. Another man's intestines turns into a monster that rips out of his stomach and viciously bites into a passing woman's arm, like damn near chewing it off. People are screaming and running everywhere. Some are tripping and falling to the floor where they're immediately being trampled to death. Others are bleeding from bad injuries to their faces and other body parts, which is all happening while this sorcerer runs through the crowd clutching this opal, trying to get to the king before it's too late. And right before he gets to the door, he is grabbed by a man begging for help when suddenly the man rips his shirt open, revealing his chest, which appears to have something moving inside. The man then falls to the ground, screaming in pain as blood begins to shoot out of his mouth. The sorcerer then watches in complete horror when suddenly the man's skin begins to split open everywhere as his motherfucking skeleton literally climbs out of his skin suit, gets up, and attacks another random guy.
It's his flesh suit. And yes, this was fucking incredible.
This was one of the coolest effects I have ever seen.
I was like, damn, they're starting out with a bang.
I
I
literally,
couldn't type the awesome shit that was happening fast enough. And
I-
then this skeleton man started coming up, which is what he's called in the
Yeah, I
credits.
mean-
And I was like, everything stopped.
I literally sat up and said out loud, holy shit,
Yeah, it
which
was
is rare.
fucking awesome.
So after this, the sorcerer has had enough, pushing people out of his way, but right before he barges into the king's throne room, he's grabbed by a woman who has been turned into an alligator, I think, maybe a lizard. I'm
I think
not
it's
really
a snake.
not really sure.
It's kind of slithers like like if you notice at the end of the sentences, there's like a slither
Yeah, but she has
morphing into a snake.
she has a big alligator tail. Like, I don't know, some kind of reptile. So after that, he heads in to see the king, and he immediately hears the king telling the jinn this isn't what he wanted and demanding he change everything back. And the evil creature then says, no problem, bro. You just got to ask me to turn things back. Which would, of course, be wish number 3, opening the portal and letting the jinn in and essentially ending mankind forever. But thankfully, the sorcerer yells stop just in time, grabbing the king's attention before he can respond. He then begs the king not to wish anymore, as he then explains what would happen if he did. And needless to say, the djinn is not too happy about this, because something really important to know is jinns have incredible power to essentially do whatever they want, but they can't actually use their power to, say, hurt or kill anybody unless someone asks for it, which is why the djinn can't really stop the sorcerer from like fucking up his plans. So the djinn tries to convince the king that making the third wish and letting his people through the portal would be a great idea, not so bad. But right as he demonstrates how thin the veil between realities is, the sorcerer pulls out the red opal and says some magic shit, which then sucks the djinn inside of it and traps him there until he is eventually released again. So basically, this red fire opal is like the lamp that genies live in until, someone rubs it and releases them. I gotta say, before we jump to present day, what a fucking intro.
Yeah. Yeah, I thought the very beginning, the set that they had where he's making this fire opal was done like really awesome, really fucking amazing set lighting. And then we get the whole Persia scene, which is wild. Like I said, there was so many awesome practical effects happening that I couldn't keep up with typing. And
Yeah.
then when the skeleton man ripped out of his flesh suit, I had to literally stop. I just had to pause it and go back.
I said,
because
damn,
I couldn't type fast enough.
I think I'm chubbed up right now. That was a damn good intro. So after that, we then jump to mid-90s America, where we meet an antiques collector named Raymond Beaumont and his assistant, Ed Finney, played by Robert Englund and Ted Raimi. And what we find out here is they are waiting at this dock for a very rare religious statue of Ahura Mazda that stands 8 foot tall and is very heavy. Ahura Mazda is a pre-Islamic god that was eventually outlawed by Islamic holy men as the religion gained popularity, which is what makes this thing so important. It is so heavy, in fact, that it must be unloaded from the boat with a small crane, which is being operated by a sloppy-looking man named Mickey Torelli, who is played by Joe Pilato, mostly known for his role in Day of the Dead. And as we see here, Torelli is already a little drunk and plans to get a bit more plastered as we see him pour alcohol into a cup sitting on the control panel. After Beaumont's assistant, Ed, yells at the man to be more careful, Torelli spills the cup all over the control panel, releasing the crate, which then plummets down right on top of Ed Finney, crushing him to death and shattering the statue. And what's interesting here is, Beaumont seems way more upset about the statue than his assistant. Dock workers then rush over to see if they can save Ed. Spoiler alert, they definitely can't. But what matters here is one of the workers spots a big red opal hidden in the wreckage of the broken stone, looks around, and then quietly slips it into his pocket.
Yeah, that guy could not have been more obvious
Yeah.
that he was about to steal that thing.
Yeah. Should have just played it. Shouldn't have did the look around. Look around's what gets you caught.
Yeah, I mean, who wouldn't be looking at that? Some guy
Yeah.
just got crushed, and you're literally with like a fucking probably 3,000-pound statue, and you're like nobody's looking.
Yeah. So after that, we then cut over to the Regal auction house where we meet our main character, Alex Amberson, her sister Shannon Amberson, and her boss, Nick Merritt. And we immediately see an older man that owns a pawn shop bring the opal in to have it appraised, telling Shannon he bought it off some guy this morning, aka the dock worker. We then get this weird scene of Alex and her best friend Josh playing tennis, where Josh attempts to again ask her out on a date, but she quickly shoots him down, telling him he's basically friend-zoned. So funny thing about this scene, despite how out of place it is, it's just a weird scene to even be here in the movie. So the actress who played Alex, Tammy Lauren, said that she is super uncoordinated and had the hardest time trying to film this scene where she has to hit this tennis ball. Like, she never played sports growing up because of how uncoordinated she is. And once you know that, and then you go back and you watch this scene, it's really fucking obvious. And
That's funny because I never noticed. That
Well-
goes to show you like how little detail you pay attention to shit like that.
Yeah, now that you know, it'll stick out to you. But this will also come up again towards the end, which tells another story. So after this oddly placed tennis scene, we cut back over to the Regal where we see Alex examining the opal with Nick standing over his shoulder, salivating over how much money he can make off this thing, which I don't get because they're just appraising it like they don't own it. I don't
Yeah,
understand this.
I don't know. Something that size, man. I don't know. They're thinking they're gonna buy it, make a bunch of money off of it.
I
I don't
guess. Anyway, we quickly get the feeling that Nick is one of those guys who is very shallow and only really cares about money and projecting the look of success. But Alex here really appreciates the close to perfect qualities the gem has, placing it under her magnifying glass to get a better look. And this is where she notices a tiny black speck right in the center. She then cleans it off and places it under her microscope when she suddenly hears a deep voice whisper, "You woke me," followed by flashes of creepy eyes and swirls of red and black in the stone. This starts to freak her out, causing her to tell Nick they need more tests and that she plans to have her friend Josh take a look at it. She then drops it off at Josh's laboratory where he agrees to do some tests later on, with Alex leaving to go coach her girls' basketball practice. These characters do not make sense.
This is what I'm saying. Like, these scenes right here are so 90s. Like, there's just something about movies in the 90s where, like, the really, like, good-looking, typical characters that are cast that you get in the 90s and the way it's shot and everything's very bright and everybody lives this, like, upper middle class life, and it just I don't know, man, it's just there's something about this time, and I feel like it hurts this movie.
Well, Josh works for a professor at a college, but he isn't a student. And Alex, who is a single woman with no kids, coaches a little girls' basketball team. And they both leave work in the middle of the day to play tennis. Not to mention they are both single and best friends with somebody of the opposite sex. None of this makes sense. And I did see Atkins was talking about it, and he was kind of like, I only really care about the gin stuff. He's like, I just kind of threw some shit together.
Clearly.
So we then skip to later that evening where we see Josh running some tests on the opal, which includes shooting it with 4 bright ass lasers, which cause it to explode, destroying the equipment and injuring Josh with shrapnel. It also frees the gin and causes Alex to hear that creepy ass whisper again, which prompts her to call the lab on a payphone, but she gets no answer. Back at the destroyed lab, we see Alex laying on the floor bleeding from his mouth in severe pain when suddenly a cute little slimy baby gin crawls towards him. This definitely freaks Josh out, but he is too badly injured to move. When the baby gin then lays next to him and asks if the pain is terrible, to which Josh is like, yeah, dude, I'm fucking bleeding out of my mouth. The baby gin then says, I can actually help you with that. All you have to do is ask. A confused Josh then mutters yes, causing the gin to work his magic, which leads to both of them uncontrollably shaking as Josh screams in pain. And while this is happening, we cut over to the gym where we see Alex drop the phone and start to have visions of what's happening at the lab. As Josh slowly has the life sucked out of his body, we see the gin begin to transform with his horns getting longer, his spine doubling in size while moving down his back, and his arms and legs rip out of the slimy cocoon he's wrapped in. And as he stands up, surrounded by the destroyed lab and Josh's dead body, we see that he is now a full-grown gin, grabbing the broken pieces of the fire opal and escaping the area before someone sees him. So, quick info about this scene. 1, Vern Troyer, who is famous for playing Mini-Me in Austin Powers, actually played Baby Gin. And this was filmed right before Austin Powers came out. It's never really addressed why the gin was a baby at first.
Yeah, I thought that was weird.
I don't really get that.
For one, I feel like this is bullshit. This does not count as a wish. The dude's
Agreed.
like, yes.
I think we play fast and loose with the rules of a wish.
He's literally bleeding out of his mouth. There's been a terrible explosion, and he's like, "Do you want me to take the pain away?" who wouldn't be like, "Yeah, I'm fucking hurting." Like, yeah, of course.
I'm counting that gargle as a yeah.
He just like mutters, "Yeah," and that's like, okay, that's not a wish.
Yeah.
And for two, like, why does he have to be a cocooned baby
I don't
Jen? Like,
know.
when he starts wiggling on the ground, it's so fucking weird.
Yeah, it doesn't at all make sense. The other thing is a lot of people say the scene where he turns into the full-size Jinn is extremely similar to Hellraiser, and I thought that was a good point, and I wonder if that's, like, on purpose or something, because Atkins wrote Hellraiser, I think it was 2, 3, and 4, and he also wrote this movie, and as we learned in our Hellbound episode, like, he's good friends with Clive Barker. It's how he ended
Yeah.
up on Hellraiser 2, so I wonder if I don't
Well,
know.
there's another scene in this that is very
Yeah,
much Hellbound.
yeah. I already know what
And
you're
quite
talking
a
about.
few special effects, the way they were written is very much Hellraiser. So, yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that. I do think he looks fucking awesome, though.
Yeah.
Like, when we get to see the Jinn for the first time as, like, a full-grown Jinn, not little baby
Teenager Jinn.
burn Jinn, yeah, he looks awesome.
Yeah. So after this, Alex rushes over to the lab fearing something's happened to Josh, and when she arrives, she's shocked to find the police there investigating. She pretty quickly loses it at the sight of his dead body, but she is pulled away by lead detective Nathanson, who tries to get some info from her, but all she can get out is he was working on a gemstone for her and their best friends. We then cut to a homeless man who is hassling people for money outside a pharmacy when the pharmacist then comes outside and confronts him about it, which ignites an argument between the two men. After exchanging fuck yous, the bum then tells the man, "I hope you die in the gutter so I can piss on you, you bald-headed baboon." The
He's a great homeless guy.
Yes. That was all of his insults were
Improv?
yeah, they were improvised. So the pharmacist then heads inside as the bum walks away, shouting insults at the store owner, when he then suddenly comes across the Jinn, who is now also dressed like a bum. And he's hanging out in a dark alley.
He is kind of a bum.
He's a bum right
He
now.
just got to Earth.
Yeah.
He has been stuck in this rock for 880 fucking years at this point.
Long
Like,
time.
yeah, he's he doesn't have his belongings anymore.
Yeah. The Jinn, immediately seeing this as an opportunity, starts asking the man if he really meant all that shit he said about the pharmacist. To which the old man says, "You're damn right I did." The Jinn then says that he can make all that happen for the low price of the man's soul. The bum then agrees and says he wishes that the pharmacist would get cancer and die, with the Jinn smiling and saying, "As you wish." We then cut to Reggie the pharmacist as he rings up Frank Nicotero, who I actually just found out's Greg's Nicotero's brother. Frank Nicotero used to host the, remember like the taxi game show? People would get in the taxi and they would go somewhere, but he would like ask them trivia questions as they. Yeah, he's a
That's
comedian.
Weird connection.
Yeah, he's in the scene. I recognized him, and I found out that this is Greg Nicotero's brother.
Dude, had you not mentioned that show, I would have that's a memory that probably I would have never thought about again.
I used to watch that show all the time.
I did too, and it probably like I haven't thought about that probably since the last time I seen it, 20 years ago.
Yeah, crazy. So suddenly, the pharmacist falls to the floor and begins convulsing. Customers quickly run over to help him, but it appears to be too late as Reggie's skin begins to boil and bubble as white foam comes out of his mouth. This only lasts about 30 seconds, where he then dies right there on the floor as the old bum watches in shock from outside. After Reggie's death, the stunned man turns around where he is confronted by the Jinn, who asks if it was worth it. The bum then throws down a cigarette and takes off running as the Jinn laughs, picks up the cigarette and hits it, and says, "Run and tell everyone there is something loose in their city that feeds on wishes while you still have a soul." And it was at this point where I was like, kind of digging the Jinn,
Yeah.
kind of into it. That cigarette hit, very, very Joe Camel cool.
Yeah, it was very cool considering he has not ever seen a cigarette. He's been locked away for 880 years. So the cigarette that he is smoking is much different than any tobacco that they were smoking back then. And yeah,
Yeah.
I feel like that Marlboro must have a factory in the middle world.
They could be smoking cigarettes there. We don't
They
know. We
have
don't know.
to. Yeah, I mean, he smoked that cigarette like a champ.
Speaking of cigarettes, lot of cigarette smoking in this movie. It's like every scene somebody's smoking. So next we jump on over to Alex and Shannon's house where we see Alex is feeling very guilty about Josh's death and keeping him in the friend zone. And this is where we find out about her traumatic past and why she was so scared to lose Josh as a friend, which no one cares about. According to Shannon, a few years ago, the Amberson family home caught on fire, where she ended up having to save her sister. And she unfortunately didn't save her parents. They died in the accident, which left Alex to feel like she failed because she wasn't able to save all of them. Shannon tries to tell her sister that their parents' death and Josh's accident wasn't her fault, but Alex doesn't want to hear it and ends up having a dream about the fire where she eventually finds herself at the tennis court sitting next to a zombified Josh.
He's so fucking cool.
Yeah, I
looking
really,
here.
I really like him, but this is revealed to be a dream. I'm honestly like the zombie Josh looks awesome and I love it, but I honestly don't really care about this, and like I don't know why this backstory is in the movie. I feel like you could have accomplished the same movie minus the traumatic background.
I feel like it's a 90s thing, man. I feel like that's totally a part of a story you would put in a story of the 90s.
It's like extra that doesn't
It's
really pertain to anything in the end.
yeah, it's super forgettable. I mean, the guy's like friend zoned to the max. Like you can't get any more friend zoned than this fucking dude. And then he dies, and she's all of a sudden like feels bad because she never fucked him.
Well, she could just not want to fuck him. She doesn't have to have a traumatic backstory to have an excuse to just not fuck him. It's cool. We don't need all that. So the next day, we see Alex head to the docks to track down where the fire opal actually came from. And after talking to the pawn shop owner and the dock worker, she heads over to Beaumont's place to discuss the Mazda statue and where it came from, hoping to get some answers about what the hell is happening. And this is where she learns about Mickey Torelli getting drunk and dropping the box on Ed Finney, as well as some history about the statue where the opal was hidden. He then takes her to his room of Lost Gods, which is a small gallery dedicated to ancient statues of gods belonging to really old civilizations. And one of my favorite things about this movie is the inclusion of Pazuzu, the statue that Father Marin dug up in Iraq at the beginning of The Exorcist. What a fucking awesome idea to put this in there.
Did you catch that or did you read it?
No, I caught that immediately.
Yeah, 100% was so fucking stoked when I seen Pazuzu.
And I rewound it. I was like,
Uh,
wait a minute. They did not include the 2-foot long rock hard cock, though.
no, he does. It's
He's got a little dick. I looked.
It's smaller cock for sure.
It's
Much
soft.
smaller.
It only gets 2 foot when he's hard.
But I mean, they also show him again more prominently later on in
Yeah.
the movie.
Mm-hmm.
But that happened so fast, you could almost miss it. This is just, I thought that was so fucking cool
Yeah.
because this whole movie is kind of like the cast and crew is so much of a love letter to horror and the awesome like practical effects and stuff. And to throw it back to the OG Exorcist, which was in a time of horror before
Yeah.
most of what this is dedicated to, I loved.
I agree. The fact that I caught a shot of Robert Englund standing next to the Pazuzu statue, like, that's when I put my seatbelt on. I said, oh,
Yeah,
this movie's going somewhere I got to buckle in for.
I can't believe I never knew that existed.
Yeah, I've never heard that brought up or anything. I've never seen a picture of it or like a screen grab. I'm actually really happy I didn't know that because it was such a, pleasant surprise. By the way, I don't know if you noticed this, but the room that the statues are in is the same exact set they used for the Persian king's throne room at the beginning of the movie. It's just slightly redecorated. It's the
Uh,
same room. uh,
well, they only had 33
yeah,
days and not much money
I
because
get
they
it.
gave it all to Wes
It's
Craven.
cool. So Beaumont then shows Alex where the Ahura Mazda statue was going to be displayed, where he then explains that Mazda was a monotheistic deity of the Zoroastrian religion, representing all things good and pure. But according to the legend, Mazda's opposing force was actually his own shadow, making him, in a way, the source of both good and evil. So I did look into it, and Zoroastrianism is a real religion. It is actually one of the world's oldest religions, originating in modern day Iran as early as 1500 BC. They did indeed worship Ahura Mazda, who was called the Wise Lord, and considered him to be the one and only God, as well as the creator of everything. The religion focused on the battle of good and evil and believed that when you die, you will go to the afterlife where you will be judged for your bad deeds in life and then go to heaven or hell. They also had a sacred text called the Avesta that also included hymns, and they believed that here on earth, good would eventually triumph over evil. Zoroastrianism is considered to be the main influence of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam through concepts like heaven and hell, angels, and the Messiah. Wow. Does Mr. Reed want to sound off on this?
Yeah,
Well, sound a little familiar.
yeah. I think it's so like mind blowing when you look at ancient religions and how something so big in the world at that time morphed and split and became what we have today. Like it's just it's crazy to think that you take a religion like that, and obviously there was many ancient religions, I'm sure, that led up to that and that, were in other parts of the world at that time where they didn't have access to communication with each other, but how that religion got so big in the Middle East and a part of the world where our modern day religions come from, and that kinda split and cracked and turned into a bunch of different religions. Like, what is it gonna be like thousands of years from now if we survive?
Yeah.
Are all these religions going to split?
Well, stuff like this is the very reason why I think we both considered the film Heretic a lot higher rated and more interesting than probably the average person who watched that movie,
God,
is
I
because
it's
knowing the background. But I also found it really cool that everything they talk about in this movie, which is full of like unrealistic characters and weird situations, that this is 100% accurate.
yeah, I love that he actually, dove into the history of the Jinn and wrote the story around that instead of just making a bunch of shit up.
Yeah. So, after a very brief history lesson, Beaumont admits that he collects the artifacts but doesn't really know much about the theology behind them, and instead recommends Alex go see a friend of his that specializes in this kind of stuff named Professor Wendy Durth. And while this is going on, we then skip over to the medical university where we see the Jinn sneak into the morgue looking for a fresh body that he finds suitable. He is pretty quickly caught by a medical student who notices he is cutting off a dead man's face. When the Jinn then thinks quick on his feet, asking if this is something the student wishes he didn't see. The terrified kid, still in shock, shakes his head yes, allowing the Jinn to use his magic and take away the student's eyes, completely blinding him, which, of course, causes him to freak out. The Jinn then goes back to what he was doing, as we then see him peel off the dead man's face and put it on like Leatherface, when suddenly it conforms to his head, totally transforming him into a handsome middle-aged man, giving him a perfect disguise. Love the face peeling.
Yeah, the CGI/optical effect of the transformation was awful, but I totally can forgive that
I get that.
because of the awesome fucking face peeling scene
It'd
that
also,
we get.
be hard to practically kind of pull that off, and I get just because they show it from behind too, so
Yeah.
I can deal with it, but
That's why I said I think some of this movie, well, not the only reason, but, had this came out 10 years before, I mean, they could have easily wrote around actually even showing that. You know, they could have had him cutting the face off and putting it on, and then boom, the next shot is him in the suit going into the mall.
yeah.
You would obviously know it's, you don't have to show that. I would rather not see the actual transformation and just get it as a viewer. It would be very obvious than to see it done bad. But
Yeah.
regardless, the face cutting off looked incredible.
Yeah. So once he transforms to look like a human, Alex collapses to the floor after receiving multiple visions of the Jinn's new face as he flashes his evil smile, letting her know he will be coming for her soon. Beaumont scrambles to help her, but once she comes to, she blows this off, claiming she's just under a lot of stress but is totally fine. And apparently, this very obvious lie is good enough for Beaumont, as we then see him immediately go back to smooth talking her, informing Alex that he has already sent her and Shannon's invitations to his big party. Alex doesn't hide the fact that she's not interested in coming, immediately informing Beaumont that she can't make it because she already has plans. He gives her that look like, you fucking lying bitch.
Yeah.
You aren't busy. You just don't want to come. So after meeting with Beaumont, she immediately heads over to the campus to meet Professor Wendy, who quickly takes a liking to Alex and agrees to help her. And it becomes very clear that despite doing some work for Beaumont, she finds him gross and insufferable, which got me thinking, I wonder if they fucked or something back in the day.
I don't know. Beaumont just has that like rich.
He's always smooth talking women, though.
Yeah.
And
Hey, he's got money.
And the first thing she asked Alex is like, "Are you working for him? No. Are you fucking him? No.
Yeah.
All right, I like you."
Well, he's rich.
And it's true. So Alex asked about the fire opal found in the Mazda statue, and Wendy begins to tell her about a text from about 900 years ago that describes something called the Stone of the Secret Fire. She then goes on to describe a court sorcerer that is said to have imprisoned an evil spirit in the stone, a spirit from the spaces between worlds, also known as a djinn. And just like the writer and director of this movie, Alex's reaction is, "You mean a fucking genie? That's dumb." Which was funny because that was my reaction when I was younger and I didn't watch it. But Wendy tells her to slow her roll because real genies aren't some Robin Williams Aladdin bullshit. These things are the real deal face of fear itself. They then take a seat where Wendy explains that God created angels and then the jinn, followed by man. The angels occupied heaven and man lived on earth, leaving the jinn stuck between the worlds, and they're really pissed off about it. This anger led to the pure hate and evilness towards mankind and the constant desire to cross over and rule earth for themselves. She then says that one thing pop culture got right is their willingness and power to grant 3 wishes. But their true motivation is always to trick mankind into making the 3rd wish, because if they do, it'll open the portal, allow the entire race to enter the realm, and take the world for themselves.
It's funny that this is based off of a real ancient religion. This is very much the same story in Christianity of the fallen angels. The angels that were mad that God essentially was going to allow humans who were very much imperfect into heaven, and it caused a civil war between the angels, and Lucifer and the fallen angels fell back to earth, and they grew a very big hate for humans and essentially tried to show God consistently through evil that humans are imperfect to prove to God that, Lucifer was right. The humans are not worthy of heaven. The heaven was created for them. And the similarities are so fucking close. And that just goes back to Heretic and how they talk about, like, these are essentially the same copies of each other over and over
Landlord,
again.
monopoly.
Yep.
Yeah. If you know, you know. So she then follows this up with the fact that humans, in order to deal with it, turn their fears into fairy tales. Because according to the old writings, the jinn are everything we have ever feared. They are older than our oldest history, more powerful than our worst imaginings, and driven by an ancient and endless malevolence. After Alex finishes up her conversation with Wendy, we then jump on over to the jinn, who is now disguised as a man and is on the hunt for some new threads. We then see him head into a department store where he picks out a nice looking black suit with a royal blue shirt and matching tie. I know this is a very 90s outfit, but I like it. Kind of digging the black and blue. So once he's all set, we then see him walk over to the sales lady, who definitely seems to be into him. And we then watch them both flirt with each other before the jinn makes a wad of cash appear in her bra. I wonder if the jinn would find like a human woman attractive.
Yeah, so I thought that that's what was going on.
I did
I
too.
was like, the jinn's trying to smash.
I thought he was going to smash it while he's in the real world. It's like Vegas.
He's like, it's been almost 900 years, pretty much 900 years at least. Yeah,
That's
it's
I
my
thought the same
time.
thing.
I got this smooth suit.
Yeah.
I've got money from something off camera that happened. I obviously got some money.
Got this human dick.
You think David Copperfield does this trick? Just makes money like appear in their bra?
Well,
Hey,
he was in the Epstein files, so that says all you need to
was
know.
he?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, how about Chris Angel?
He wasn't.
He's like gothed out.
Yeah.
Find him a new goth suit at fucking what fuck?
Mind freak. Hot topic.
Hot topic. There we go. Like the fucking I'm surprised he wasn't in the Epstein files. I could totally see Chris Angel like the 15-year-old girl at Hot Topic. Chris Angel just picked him up some new black studded belts.
Yeah. So this is
Just
where
like, check your bra.
this is where we find out that the jinn has not only adopted the look of this man, but also his identity, as he then tells the sales lady his name is Nathaniel Demarest. He then starts talking about how beautiful she is, which gets her even more interested when suddenly he asks if it bothers her to know that her beauty will fade away, leaving her old and unhappy in the end. Talk about killing the vibe.
Yeah.
This guy fucking flirts with her this whole time and then drops a bomb like, does it bother you one day you'll have saggy titties?
Yeah.
So, I gotta say, she takes this better than most, and she then responds in a very nice tone. Well, that's life, right? Happens to all of us. But it's at this point where we realize he is setting a trap as he then tells her, nope, doesn't have to happen to you. All you gotta do is ask to be beautiful forever. And now that the trap is set, we watch this poor innocent girl walk right into it as she then says the magic words, prompting Demarest to smile and say, pleasure doing business with you. And after he turns and walks away, we see that he has changed the woman into a plastic mannequin, where she is now forever frozen in her beauty for years and years to come. God damn it, that's dark. It's
Yeah. So I thought that this was like a really important scene in the movie because it really shows how fucking evil the
They
Jinn
hate-
is.
they hate
Yes.
humans, period.
Yeah, it's very much like he's not going after and doing evil stuff just to get the Jinn free. He had no reason to do this to this girl and completely did it out of hate. And it's one of those things, like I just mentioned with the CGI, him transforming. Like, I love how they showed how the scene was written with him walking out, and then it's just her as a mannequin. And if you catch it, you catch it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how I feel like they could have did his transformation. Like,
Yeah, good
we
point.
didn't need to see her transform into a mannequin with shitty CGI. I loved the way it was shot. I wouldn't have taken it any other way.
Despite it not being gory at all, to me, this is one of the most horrifying kills in the whole movie.
Yeah.
This would be awful.
So there's a shot later on that
With
we
her
see that
eyes?
shows that she
Yeah.
is still conscious and
Yes.
she's just stuck.
Yeah.
And
Agreed.
that I considered in my favorite kills just because obviously I didn't put it in there because this is such a effects heavy movie.
Yeah.
But just how evil and fucked up it was.
Yeah, that's why I shouted it out, because I
Yeah.
think it at least deserves, like, it's not really special effects, but it is mentally horrifying to be a mannequin
Yeah.
forever. So next we followed Demarest to the police station where he finds the lead detective that investigated Josh's death, Lieutenant Nathanson. And Nathanson tells him that the case is closed after it was ruled an accidental death unless Demarest has something he wants to add. But Demarest flashes that charming smile as he then tells the man no, he has nothing to add, but he was actually hoping to get Alex's address from him. This causes the detective to get a little suspicious, but it's pretty obvious that someone else has caught his attention. Demarest noticed this and pretty boldly asks him what he keeps looking at over there. When Nathanson then points out the man sitting at the other desk being questioned by the two other detectives and tells him that that guy is 100% guilty and managed to walk on 7 counts, and no matter what they do, they can't manage to pin a single crime on him. Demarest immediately recognizes this as his chance to work his magic, asking the detective what he would like to do about it. Nathanson, who is on the verge of being filled with rage at this point, tells him just this once he would like it to be easy, dead to rights, murder one, everybody's an eyewitness. The djinn then smiles real big, looks over at the guy, and taps the tip of his finger on the desk, when suddenly the man jumps up, grabs one of the cops' guns, and immediately starts firing, killing the 2 officers that were talking to him. The police station then erupts in chaos as shots are fired and people are screaming as they duck for cover. Nathanson then spurs into action, joining 4 other cops, taking the man down. But just when they think the situation's under control, Nathanson spots Demarest stealing Alex's business card, prompting him to use his magic again, giving the man super strength, where he then pushes all the cops away, ripping off one of the detective's jaws.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah. The jaw ripping off was fucking incredible. Loved it. The effects look great. This is also awful detective work.
All around.
It really goes though to show like the charisma that he has and that kind of pinhead, one step ahead of you intelligence. He's able to almost get in people's heads or get people to open up that wouldn't normally open up because it's just such like the detective very much at first immediately goes to be like, okay, there's something here. Let me take some notes because this guy's being really weird. And then immediately it's like he uses his charisma and influence
To get it
and
out of him.
completely distracts this guy.
Yeah. So after that, the officers are done playing games as Nathanson and the others draw their weapons and fire round after round into the man, killing him. By the time it's all over, the detective looks around and realizes Demarest is long gone with Alex's information. I noticed that there was a bunch of other cops still behind that guy when they're shooting him, so I would assume there's definitely some friendly fire. So once he gets his hands on Alex's information, he heads straight over to her job, where he discovers the place is closed and the only people there are her boss, Nick, and a security guard named Jay Voorhees. I'm sure you can all guess who he is played by. Despite this, Demarest isn't giving up as he decides that he will just ask her boss for her home address, but first he has to get past this security guard who is rocking the most intimidating facial hair known to man. What the fuck was up with that?
Yeah,
Like
I don't
his
know. Kane
sideburns,
Hodder,
his
yeah.
sideburns are completely shaved off. His beard just stops like dead in its tracks, like level with his teeth. It reminds me of Back to the Future 2, where Marty goes to the future and Biff and the gang are all like dressed fucking weird because it's the future. That's what this looked like.
Do you think Kane Hodder like was really rocking this? Or
I was going to ask you,
made him
do
do
you
this?
think that he wore this around?
You think Kane Hodder was like, it's almost the new millennium? Like,
God, when we
after
met
bringing
him,
some style back into this shit.
when we met him like a few months ago, I wish I would have printed this out and been like, can you sign this? Bro, like, I'll just shave my shit just like that and be like, dude, you inspired me.
You know, it's funny because I had talked to CJ
CJ
Graham
Graham, yeah.
about the picture that he had found
Oh,
of
yeah, the
Kane
high
Hodder,
school?
and he showed me the picture on his cell phone that he
Yeah,
had, but I never got to actually get one of the prints.
yeah,
That's a shame. But one thing I did notice, man, is although CJ Graham played Jason in part 6,
yeah.
he is much larger
Oh,
than what
yeah.
Kane Hodder is.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, I have a picture with CJ Graham, and I'm not very tall, but my picture next to Kane Hodder does not look, like, crazy disproportionate, but my picture with CJ
yeah.
Graham is fucking wild.
Yeah, I gotta say, man, like, I love Kane Hodder, I love what he did for the character, but in person, personably, I love talking to CJ Graham more.
Yeah.
He is one of my favorite people I've ever talked to and met. So the guards are like so the guard is like, "Dude, we're closed, come back tomorrow." But Demarest isn't taking no for an answer as he then calls him Little Man and tells him that he is becoming a bother. And that immediately pisses Jay Voorhees off, causing him to unlock the door and stand directly in Demarest's face, again telling him to fuck off and come back tomorrow. The two then exchange some more words when finally the Jinn decides to use his power, telling the guard to ask him something. The guard then says, "Okay, I want you to leave." And this does something we haven't actually seen yet in the whole movie, despite the fact that he is dead set on getting in this building. When the guard wishes for him to leave, his fucking body ignores him, turns itself around, and literally starts walking away as Demarest actively tries to stop himself but can't, which I found to be pretty funny, and it just goes to show you how bound the Jinn's power really is. So as he's reluctantly walking down the hallway, he says, "No, I have to get inside," when suddenly the guard makes a huge mistake, shouting back, "Well, you'll have to go through me," which, in my opinion, is kind of another little fast and loose with the rules thing because that's not really a question.
Or a
Um,
wish.
he does say, like, that's something I wish to see, but I think, yeah, we're a little loose on the rules here. But yeah, that's all the Jinn needed to hear, as he then turns around with a big old smile on his face, where he then uses some very bad CGI to turn the guard into a full-size stained glass window and proceeds to walk right through him, shattering the man into pieces.
Oh, it's so bad looking.
Interesting fact here. I hate this kill because of the terrible CGI. And I found out that the production actually made this Kane Hodder stained glass window prop that they hung up. What you see in the movie is a real stained glass window of Kane Hodder. And they shattered it for the scene. You can actually catch a glimpse of this in the behind the scenes featurette. And I don't understand why they ditched the real version of it shattering to replace it with that abomination of CGI where the glass breaks in like 7 huge pieces and flies off in every direction like we're in fucking space.
Well,
It's terrible.
I think it was artisan or was, one of the bigger producers behind the scenes. I think it goes to like the studio thing where ton of movies at that time, like if you were a horror movie in the late 90s, at some point you had to have some type of CGI. Like it was the cool thing
It
people
was
were
the
adding in
future.
there. And yeah, I feel like that was one of those things that they screened it and was like, yeah, that looked kind of cool, but it would be way cooler if we added the CGI and we made the glass shatter
It
everywhere.
was horrible.
And it just didn't age.
Yeah, it
And it
looked
just doesn't
bad.
age at all. It looks awful.
So anyway, Nick's back in his office pretending to be Scrooge McDuck swimming around in his massive pile of gold coins when suddenly Demarest walks in smoking a cigarette. And right off the bat, Nick's like, "Who the fuck are you?" And Demarest plays it cool and says, I need your help. I'm looking for Alex. She's expecting me and I need her home address. Well, thankfully, Nick's not as big of a scumbag as I originally thought he was, telling him that there's no way he's giving him that info. I don't know if you caught it, but right on the edge of Nick's desk, right in front of Demarest, there is an all-black genie lamp like the one from Aladdin that Jafar ends up in, which I thought was a cool little Easter egg, considering Jafar turned into an evil genie. I think it's an Easter egg.
He wishes to be a djinn. Yeah.
Yeah. So once Nick smugly tells him to fuck off, the djinn realizes he's got to get on this dude's level if he wants him to cooperate, prompting him to then pick up a very old antique candle holder or something. I don't know what this fucking thing is. This causes Nick to kind of freak out, begging the man to be careful because it's so valuable, when Demarest then asks him, how would you like it if it was 100 times more valuable? And Nick is like, does a bear shit in the woods?
Dude, this thing is an old cup.
Is
I
it?
forget what they call it. It's
Oh, it was a candle holder or something.
Brooke just mentioned it the other day, and I was like, what the fuck is that supposed to be? Because it was like the one that like Jesus supposedly drank from at the Last Supper. It's like a chalice or something. And I was like, what the fuck is that? She's like, you don't know what that is? And she looked up a picture of it. It's the same fucking thing he's holding here.
So he then answers with a very sarcastic yes, prompting Demarest to wave his hands over the object, turning it into a brand new looking solid gold antique thing, which he then tips over, dumping out a bunch of diamonds on the desk, which causes Nick to literally come in his pants right then and there. A shocked Nick then asks if the man is some kind of magician, with Demarest stating, no, it's just an old family secret. And now that he is really got his attention, he once again asks for Alex's address. Despite his newly acquired diamonds, Nick still hesitates to give him her info, leading to Demarest asking what it would take for him to spill the beans, with Nick quickly blurting out $1 million. This answer doesn't even fade Demarest, taking a drag of his cigarette, leaning in real close and saying one word, done. We then cut to an airport where we see an old lady preparing to get on a flight when a woman at the desk catches her before she leaves, pointing out that she forgot to put down the name of her insurance beneficiary. The old lady laughs this off, blaming it on forgetfulness, as she then puts down her son's name, Nick Merritt, meaning this is Nick's mother. And as she is filling it out, we see that the payout for her accidental death is $1 million. She then boards the plane, it takes off, and while in midair, it suddenly explodes into a massive fireball, obviously killing her and making Nick $1 million richer. Holy fuck, dude, the djinn blew up a 747.
Yeah.
To kill one old lady, to get Alex's address.
This just goes to show how evil the djinn is. This is another great example because he obviously created those diamonds from nothing, which were probably close to, in nowadays money, but fucking $1 million. I mean, it's literally like a pile of fucking massive diamonds.
Way easier ways to do this than to blow up an airplane.
He can obviously make $1 million in a suitcase show up immediately. Like, he has unlimited power, but he kills this guy's mom just out of evil. And I also, huge plot hole here. How did this work? Because did he wait until he got a call that his mom died and he got $1 million payout? And then he was like, all right, $1 million. Thanks, Mom. Here's this address. Like, what do you do? Tell him, like, done. Give me that address and you'll get a call in the next couple days.
Or
$1 million.
Or he's like,
half now, half later.
He's like, done. Check your nipples. And he pulls out $1 million check, like the saleswoman, and the whole plane thing was a coincidence.
The check bounces, it's fake.
And then he gets the $1 million.
But he really has to give him the $1 million.
Yeah.
So he's like, I could make this check work, but I'd rather kill your mom, who is for some reason finishing her life insurance paperwork at the airport.
Yes.
How convenient.
Yeah. So after all that, we then cut back to Alex, who has been spending the past day and a half researching everything she can about the djinn, looking for some kind of loophole or weakness to defeat him. This gets interrupted when an aggravating Shannon comes stomping into the living room asking Alex just what the hell she's doing because she has been waiting to take her to the girls' basketball game, which obviously Alex forgot about. While at the game, Alex attempts to reach Wendy again but continues to get the answer machine, leading her to get more and more aggravated. After the call, she then goes back to coaching, where we then see the djinn, still disguised as Demarest, asked to borrow Shannon's cell phone, where he hits redial in order to find out who Alex is trying to get a hold of. And as soon as the answer machine picks up, he gets his answer, where he then gives Shannon her phone back and walks out the gym, heading straight for Wendy's apartment. So the next day, Alex is sitting in her apartment smoking like a chimney when suddenly the phone rings. She picks it up and hears Detective Nathanson on the other end, but before he gets the chance to tell her about Demarest, the djinn decides it's time to cash in his chips as he then squeezes the shards of the gem in his palm, effectively collecting all the souls he has gathered since he has arrived. We then see Nathanson, the bum, the blind med student, Nick, and the department store mannequin lady begin to double over in pain until they finally collapse and die. And while all this is happening, Alex can feel and see glimpses of their fate as they are now eternally trapped inside the fire opal. I do want to point out something. For one, despite Nick just losing his mom in a plane crash that he caused, he does not seem very upset. And two, he is still wearing the same goddamn clothes from 2 days ago. And finally, when the djinn goes to collect his soul, Nick suddenly stands up and grabs his stomach like he suddenly has diarrhea.
I thought everybody kind of seemed like they had diarrhea.
Like he just
I
gives
was like,
people diarrhea.
Does the djinn make everybody have to shit themselves?
Nick's like, oh, I'm going to shit. I'm going to
Like-
shit my pants that I've been wearing for 3 days.
Well, his mom died. Give him a break.
It's a stupid fucking green sweater. He had one outfit for the whole movie.
Is the way to defeat the djinn Pepto-Bismol? Like
Maybe.
the djinn doesn't know about Pepto.
They didn't have that in the
It's like,
12th
why
century.
isn't this working?
So, yeah, this attack leaves Alex on the floor in pain for a few minutes when she then gets a phone call from the djinn where he taunts her like Ghostface, telling her, only you can relieve their pain. Only you can set them free. And it is at this point where Alex just can't take it anymore and decides she's got to go talk to Wendy and tell her what's going on. After Wendy lets her inside, Alex immediately spills the beans, flat out telling her, the stone is charged with souls and the djinn is after me. But Wendy quickly brushes this off by telling her it's the 20th century and that's very unlikely. This is kind of the opposite reaction Alex was expecting from Wendy, considering how understanding she was at their first meeting, but Wendy moves on pretty fast, offering to make Alex a drink. And this is where she mentions Nick, which is an immediate red flag because Alex specifically never told her where she worked. And it starts to become very obvious that Wendy here is acting pretty strange, especially considering her newfound snotty, dismissive attitude she has towards Alex and the djinn. Alex then admits that she came here looking for some kind of spell or ritual to defeat the djinn, but Wendy sits down and tells her that, unfortunately for her, she was born into an age of reason and science, and all the sorcerers are dead, and all the spells are lost to time, with the djinn itself being the only thing left from that world. She then offers Alex something to eat, and this is when Alex gets really aggravated because she's trying to talk to her about something serious, and she's basically gaslighting her, and she keeps stopping to offer her shit, and this is where it finally clicks. She is, for the first time, sitting face to face with the djinn. This causes Alex to quietly change gears, stop being vulnerable, and put up her defenses, as she now realizes the war has begun. And after a bit of verbal warfare, Alex stands up to leave when suddenly the djinn drops the act, reveals his identity, and shows us Wendy's bloody, faceless body laying in the bedroom. The djinn then brings up the fact that he has basically killed almost everybody that's important to her, where he then proceeds to ask her about her sister Shannon, which really gets under Alex's skin, but her defiant attitude is pretty quickly shut down when the djinn morphs into his shrew face, showing her what he actually looks like, leaving her in total shock. His makeup looks really good, like even in the daylight, and I love the moving tentacles coming out of his head. And an interesting thing about the makeup in general. So it took Andrew Dioff around 3 hours every day to put the costume on and about an hour and a half to remove it. The whole outfit weighed close to 50 pounds, which he was forced to wear all day long, which included tiny little electric motors in the headpiece for the moving tentacles coming out of his head. During breaks in between scenes, he couldn't remove it in order to eat, which left him with a diet of milkshakes and jelly beans, which is actually how he developed the voice for the djinn. He had a lot of phlegm in his throat. He just got tired of clearing his throat and just fucking let it roll. And speaking of the tentacle things, they originally were going to be designed as more of a jewelry type thing or kind of like a tribal headdress that would be made out of the spine and vertebrae of his victims.
Damn.
Dope.
That very much gives me Jeepers Creepers vibes, which thinking about it, he kind of looks a little bit like
A little bit in the face.
creeper.
Yeah.
Like he's got the creeper teeth, and it's like Freddy Pinhead and the creeper had a baby.
Yeah.
It was the djinn.
So back in Wendy's living room, Alex manages to get herself together as the djinn begins to try and convince her to make some damn wishes already. To which she then tries to wish the djinn to kill himself, which he has no problem with, pulling out a gun and blowing his brains out in front of her. But this has almost no effect on him, as we then see his skull immediately heal, followed by him explaining that because he's eternal, he cannot die. But if it makes her feel any better, he does admit it hurts like hell.
This is the scene I remember from my childhood. Is when he shoots himself in the head and he makes the fucking awesome line that what is eternal cannot die, but if it's any consolation to you, that hurt like hell.
Yeah. So it's at this point where Alex realizes that in order to defeat him, she must learn more about him, using her first wish to know what he is. And despite her good intentions here, this turns out to be a big mistake, because she is immediately transported into the fire opal, where the djinn sits on a large twisted throne surrounded by the souls of the people he killed earlier. The souls behind him give off some serious Hellraiser vibes.
Bro, this whole scene is Hellraiser
Yeah.
too.
The department,
Like when they go into the fucking the whole like what do they call it?
the Hell Dimension?
Yeah, the Hell
Yeah.
Dimension.
The department store girl is like half naked getting whipped with a tentacle. And Nathanson's chest skin has been peeled back, revealing all of his muscles and tendons, which looks great. And I do love how this is just a big red tent with some camo net thrown on top of it and red lighting and a fog machine, dude.
It looks good though,
That's-
man. It's fucking this is a cool ass scene because of all the practical effects.
Yeah,
Like the practical effects in this are on Hellraiser level.
I immediately clocked that fucking camo net, though. So as Alex stands there looking up at the djinn, scared out of her mind, she spots his pet snapping turtle dinosaur dog thing.
I don't know what the fuck that
thing
was.
straight out of a nightmare, which he sends after her, forcing her to take off running through the hallways of the opal. The djinn then informs her that since she's stuck in the gym, he's going to use this time to go after Shannon, which forces Alex to make her second wish, demanding to be transported back to her apartment. We then see the red walls of the fire opal quickly fade away, being replaced by Alex's dining room, where she immediately starts looking for her sister, but after getting no response, she finds a note on the table telling her that she went to Beaumont's party and hopes to see her there. A panicked Alex then grabs her keys, dead set on getting to that party and saving Shannon, but right as she's leaving, the djinn reminds her that she is down to one more wish and he will be close behind. To which she responds with a fantastic, "Fuck you." By the way, did you see the fountain in front of Bowman's house when she pulls up?
I didn't notice anything specific about it.
Yeah, it's one of the most 90 thing I have ever seen. Like, I totally forgot about the big glass cube bricks that were popular back then, and it's like backlit by neon lighting.
Uh-huh.
Oh my god, it's so fucking 90s, man. So Alex arrives at the party extremely underdressed, and just like he promised, the djinn is right behind her. Like, I mean, literally walking behind her. And we see here Beaumont must be big time because he's hired like Secret Service type security for this thing. Because when Alex walks up to the door, a tall, handsome guard wearing a tuxedo stops her to see if her name is on the list. And this guy is played by the Candyman himself, Tony motherfucking Todd.
Dude, Beaumont's so fucking rich. Like, he collects ancient statues, but he's like, yeah, I don't know much about the theology behind him. Like, and that's when he suggests that lady that she
I just
goes
like the
to.
aesthetic.
To be that rich and to collect ancient statues that cost probably millions of dollars a piece
And don't even
and
bother.
don't even care to look into the background of them.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, so rich, you gotta collect something,
Fuck you, money.
but yeah,
Yeah.
you just collect something just for the cool room.
So Alex gets let in, but right before she walks through the door, she tells this guard, whose name is Johnny Valentine, that the man standing behind her is crazy and he won't stop following her. And Valentine does not take kindly to men who abuse women. Alex then rushes inside to find her sister as Valentine confronts Demarest, where they then trade insults back and forth until finally the djinn decides to use his magic by asking Valentine if he was satisfied with his career. He then uses his smooth talking skills to get under Valentine's skin, making him admit that this isn't where he thought he would be at this point in his life, leading to the djinn to offer him a deal. He can guarantee him a much more exciting profession starting right now. All he has to do is answer the question. Demarest then looks him dead in the eye, and as they stand face to face, he asks him, "Would you like to escape?" We then see Valentine's expression change from defiant to interested as he then leans in close and says yes. Demarest then smiles and says, "As you wish." And as he walks towards the party, where we see that Valentine is now wearing a straitjacket while locked inside of a water tank, struggling to escape while quickly running out of air. Demarest then makes a joke about Houdini as he walks into the party, leaving Valentine to surely die. He did say he wanted to escape into a more exciting profession.
Yeah, well, I think this is important to show the djinn what I was saying earlier, how charismatic and his ability to get inside even the toughest
Opponent.
people with the toughest exterior, like to get them to open up to make a wish. Because this guy's clearly like a head security guard, obviously, for this big time security company. And he at first wants nothing to do with this guy. He's very much like, fuck you. And he's able to get inside of his head and peek on, the things that he's probably most vulnerable about, which is where he's at in life.
Yeah, honestly, the first time I saw this, I was really hoping that Valentine was going to escape and like pop back up during the final showdown and help Alex.
Plot twist.
Very let down when
he-
Tony Todd didn't come back.
Yeah, plot twist. Johnny Valentine is actually the profession that he wishes that he had as a magician.
Yeah.
And he's been practicing Houdini's Great Escape.
It's Tony Todd and the scene was so fast. Like he was defeated so easily. And I was like, oh, he's going to come back.
I definitely didn't think he was going to come back.
I blame it on the fact that we just covered Night of the Living Dead. He was like a badass there. I was let down. So we then catch back up with Alex, who has finally found Shannon in the party, but after a brief conversation, Shannon refuses to leave. And this is where she points out Beaumont's new friend, which Alex immediately recognizes as Demarest, which sends her even deeper into panic mode, which is made even worse when she turns around to find that Shannon has walked off and left her by the bar. We then jump on over to Beaumont, who is discussing how much he likes throwing big, extravagant parties, giving the djinn a perfect opportunity to kill a fuck ton of humans. He then offers to help Beaumont throw a historic party that would go down in history, to which the man eagerly agrees. They then toast their glasses, followed by Demarest saying the magic words, "As you wish," which immediately catches Alex's attention when suddenly shit starts popping off. The first thing we see is a woman talking to her date when she then says, "You can see right through me," prompting her to turn to glass and suddenly shatter all over the place, killing multiple people and slicing half a guy's face off, which looked awesome. Once this happens, pandemonium breaks out, sending everyone running and screaming, exactly like the scene we saw in the 12th century Persia, the beginning of the movie. We then see the Pazuzu statue kind of come alive, launching these two snake things out into the crowd, where one of them literally latches onto a man's face, ripping and twisting it off as he screams in horror. One of my favorite effects from the movie. Alex then jumps up and starts running through the crowd looking for her sister when she suddenly runs past a man who has some kind of metal rod jammed completely through his head, exiting out of his mouth. We then see blood pouring out all over his chest as he tries to pull the rod out, but right before we cut away, we see him finally fall to the floor where I'm sure he bleeds to death. I think this thing that's in his head, I think is the thing you play with the violin with. Like, I think he's a violinist. And I think that's what it is. Next,
Regardless, it looked
yes,
fucking
awesome.
incredible, and it would make sense with him being the violinist and that being the string thing you play, because when he's trying to pull it out of his face, he's pulling it and pushing it back and forth,
Yeah.
which is just an awesome play on, like, a violinist literally
Playing his
like
teeth.
he's like sawing into like the bottom part of his brain and through his jaw, and it just looks awesome.
Next, we see all of the chords snap in the piano, which then come to life and wrap around a partygoer's arm and face, where it immediately squeezes his head so tight it begins to slice his skin open until it finally just rips his head clean off, with us then getting a shot of the decapitated head just rolling across the floor. Fucking awesome kill. It's gotta be an ode to Hellraiser 2, man.
Dude, this I'm pretty sure was also Robert Kurtzman.
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
It was his cameo. He only likes to be in movies if he gets to have an outrageous death scene. And the decapitated head was actually one that he made for another movie which he directed, where he also died in a gruesome way, and they still had the head. So that's why they used it. And how they filmed the piano wire wrapping around his head was they just wrapped it around him, and then they, filmed it coming off and then reversed the footage.
Yeah, well, it looked really good when it literally squeezes his fucking head off.
It's
a
dead on
awesome,
Chenard.
awesome kill.
Yeah, Dr. Chenard, Cenobite Chenard.
Yeah.
Exactly dead on. It's gotta be, man. It's just gotta be. So Alex then spots Shannon getting carried away by the panicked crowd, but right as she starts to make her way towards her, the fireplace explodes, catching multiple people on fire, who then dive out of the window. Once the crowd finally thins out by the front door, Alex runs into the hallway where she's suddenly stopped in her tracks by the sight of another dead partygoer who is hanging upside down, covered in blood, as a bunch of crazy-ass tentacles flail around from his ripped open neck. God damn, dude, these are 10 out of 10 kills.
Yeah.
All of these
yeah.
kills are amazing.
We get a ton of fucking amazing practical effects in this scene. The very first scene of that party and then this party, they had to have spent half of the entire shoot doing these two scenes.
So while all this crazy shit is going on, the Djinn decides to drop his disguise, morphing into his true self, which makes things even more chaotic. After this, he then confronts Alex, where he tries to convince her to make her third and final wish, which she rejects. But it is at this point where he brings up a good point. He doesn't need to kill her, he just needs her to wish she was dead. Alex then runs off, where she runs into Beaumont, but their conversation is cut short when he suddenly throws up this, slimy creature who grows spider legs and attacks Alex, forcing her to stab it with a piece of glass in order to escape. Remember how I told you she was uncoordinated in real life? So this is according to her. When they filmed this scene, she was super excited to do this scene. She accidentally stabbed herself in the leg with the glass, which she then tried to hide from everybody. But it began to bleed so badly, she finally had to bring it up, to which she was then really embarrassed.
That's fucking
Yeah.
hilarious.
So after she gets away from that, she ends up coming across a hallway full of ancient statue warriors. And because a few minutes ago she saw a statue come alive, she gets really cautious that these things are going to come to life and kill her. And it's at this point where 5 security guards come running in, who all end up getting butchered by these statues when they come alive. Honestly, love the statues. I think they look super fucking cool and realistic. They were all played by these special effects guys who were so excited about this, they stayed late after work to work on their individual costumes and make them look as real as possible. And that's what I was saying earlier, man. This movie was made by horror fans for horror fans.
Yeah, because this totally, like, if you explain this on paper, this scene could go horribly.
Yes.
Like, this is something that before I watched this, if you explain this scene to me, I would think really bad CGI
Yeah.
or really bad practical effect. Like a person in a statue costume
Spirit Halloween costume.
that just doesn't look like a statue. Like, it's really hard to get that look down.
They nailed it.
Let alone like different types of statues. Like, one's a bronze statue, another one is actual like carved
a couple stone,
sculpture.
yeah.
So for them to be able to pull that off and it work and just like visually as good as it did, huge props to them.
Yeah.
And we get a mace to the face kill.
Yeah.
And it's fucking awesome too.
That was my next note. Huge prop to the security guard face smashing kill. Looks fucking awesome. So all that's left is one security guard and Alex, but this doesn't last long because Jack the fucking Ripper comes alive out of a painting from behind them and literally tackles the man to the floor, slicing his neck open. After this, Alex ends up getting confronted by the djinn and his henchmen of statues in the display room, where he tries to convince her to make her third and final wish that would open up the portal. Despite all that has happened at the party, Alex still refuses the djinn's offer, forcing him to reveal his newest creation. He then points to the wall, where Alex spots a painting of her sister burning alive in a house. As the flames get hotter and hotter, Alex begins to hear Shannon's screams, which almost brings her to her knees, with the djinn constantly reminding her to make her third wish if she wants to save her sister. Alex begins to think real hard about everything that has happened in the past few days, when suddenly she remembers what started all of this in the first place. She then looks at the djinn and, having no idea if this is going to work or destroy humanity, says, "I wish that Mickey Torelli was never drinking at work 2 days ago." The djinn then smiles real big, having finally gotten someone to make their third and final wish, not realizing the implications of what she actually said. When suddenly the fire opal begins to glow bright red as he slowly begins to get sucked back into the tiny prison, and everything he just did starts to go back to normal. We then get a bright flash of white light, where we are then transported back to that day at the docks where Beaumont and Ed Finney are waiting for the statue to be lowered down. But this time, Mickey Torelli is not drinking from the flask and appears to be a lot more coordinated and clear-minded. The Mazda statue is delivered without any issues, the fire opal is never discovered, and everyone is back alive, totally fine, with no memory of what happened before. That is, except Alex, who now uses her second chance with Josh to finally go on a date with him, where we then cut to Beaumont's display room, where we see the Ahura Mazda statue sitting on its pedestal peacefully, safe and sound, with the fire opal encased inside of the old rock the statue was made from. And needless to say, the djinn is not happy and is forced to count down the days when he finally gets another chance at being free. And that is the end of Wishmaster.
Man, I gotta say, I was really
Disappointed that
disappointed.
Valentine didn't come back. I hate to.
Yeah, how simple of a wish for one it is to defeat the djinn. Like most genies have like a time travel rule, like you generally can't. Like there's a set of rules that you can't do, and that's normally one of them. Like you can't just say, "Well, I wish you would have never been released from the
I
opal."
wish you were never born.
Yeah, like I mean, that's essentially what she's
Yeah,
wished for. I wish you would have never been discovered.
yeah.
Like that's way too easy. I hate that she knows that this thing needs 3 wishes, and within 10 minutes of their first meeting, she's 2 wishes in.
Yeah.
Like, why would you ever wish to see where he came from in the first place?
And he doesn't really show her what she's actually asking for.
No, and then she wishes to be back in her apartment, which is okay, you've literally used now 2 wishes in your first 10 minutes of confrontation. He couldn't have left her in there. He has to have 3 wishes from her to get what he wants.
Well, he's
So,
tricking her into doing her
yeah,
second wish, yeah.
yeah, but he can't kill her, and he can't keep her inside of this opal. So I heard the fact that she wasted her wishes that fucking fast, and then the whole thing is like once the third wish is granted, all these jinns are free. Well, technically, the third wish was granted.
Yeah,
So
I thought about that.
despite him, the going back in time, wouldn't he and now all the other gens now be released onto Earth?
Yeah, it's like, what's more powerful, time travel or the portal?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a
We're
lot of
playing
plot holes.
fast and loose with the rules, but I know.
But man, it was a really, really special effects heavy,
Yeah.
awesome ending to the movie. I will say that. Story wise, definitely weak on the end, but yeah, I thought the whole entire final act was great. But I was really bummed, as much as I love Motorhead and Lemmy, to hear that over Harry Manfredini's score for this movie.
Yeah, when it comes to the story, I mean, Peter Atkins' exact quote was, "I just threw some shit together." Because he really wanted to write the cool Jin kills, like, he didn't give a fuck about the story, and I think
And
that they shows.
yeah, and he nailed that.
Yeah.
All the awesome practical effects. The Jinn looks great. The character of the Jinn is fantastic. Yeah, I thought they nailed everything that he wrote the story for. Just, I gotta think that the Motorhead at the end was the studio. It was the late
Probably,
90s.
yeah.
That's how all the studios were doing their horror movies at that point. You can't tell me that all of these people that were in charge and working on this movie that are diehard horror fans and went out and got Harry Manfredini to do a score for this film would have chose to play a Motorhead song over the actual score that was orchestrated for this film.
Yeah. Definitely seems like a studio thing. Yeah, so I only got really one fact here. It's interesting though. So during the filming of the scene where the warrior statue explodes, something went terribly wrong, causing a huge fire to break out on set, shutting down production for the day and melting 2 of the cameras. Basically, what happens is there were 4 charges inside the statue that were supposed to go off one by one, starting with the head. But by the time the 3rd and 4th one went off, the air was full of the foam that they made the statue out of. Well, this shit ignited on the 3rd charge, causing a huge fireball that covered most of the set. And you can actually see this happen on the behind the scenes featurette. And it's like, holy shit.
Yeah. That fucking phone shit is
Yeah.
super, super flammable.
Yeah. And that's what was at the Great White.
Great White, yeah, the
Concert fire.
station, the station nightclub. Yeah, that was awful, awful accident, but it was made from soundproofing foam that was on the walls.
All right, so ratings and kill count. Technically, this movie only has the kills that happen in the very beginning. That's all we
Yeah.
got, which was like
Well,
6
if you
kills.
go with the story.
Yep,
Yeah.
I mean, technically, she brought everybody back to life. Never happened. All right, so I got a total of 37 kills, give or take a few. So we got Persian Guy 1 turned into a wall. Persian Guy 2 had his guts turned into a monster. Persian Woman 1 turned into a tree. Persian Guy 3 had his skeleton rip out of his body. Persian Woman 2 turned into an alligator lizard thing. Ed Finley gets crushed by a falling box. Josh injured in a gym explosion and killed by the djinn. The pharmacist gets horrible cancer and dies. The saleswoman gets turned into a mannequin. Detective 1 gets his jaw ripped off by the criminal. Criminal gets shot by a ton of cops. Security guard Jay Voorhees turned into a glass and then shattered. Nick's mom dies in a plane explosion. Main detective had his soul taken by the djinn. The bum had his soul taken. The blind med student had his soul taken. Alex's boss Nick had his soul taken. Professor Wendy had her face ripped off by the djinn. Partygoer 1 turned into glass and explodes. Partygoer 2 killed by glass shards. Partygoer 3 killed by glass shards. Partygoer 4 gets face sliced off by glass. Partygoer 5 killed by Pazuzu statue. Partygoer 6 gets a rod through the head. Partygoer 7, aka Piano Man, head ripped off by piano wire. Partygoer 8, a fireplace explosion caught on fire. Partygoer 9, tentacles rip out of neck while upside down. Beaumont pukes up facehugger-like creature. Security guard 1 killed by a statue with a sword. Security guard 2 killed by a statue with an arrow. Security guard 3 killed by a statue having his face bashed in. Security guard 4, Jack the Ripper, comes out of the painting and stabs him in the throat. And then Shannon, her sister, burns to death in the painting. And 34, 35, 36, and 37 are all evil statues that explode when the djinn is sucked back into the opal. God damn, that was a lot.
Yeah. We also skipped over the fact that the Josh here, it literally took a evil entity coming back and killing like everybody that Alex knows to get him out of the friend zone.
Yeah, some say it's not possible to get out of the friend zone, but I guess it is. It's just you got to do this. The girl's got to fight off a supernatural bad guy
What if
in
what if
time travel.
plot plot twist? He actually discovers the opal before her, and his first wish is for her to fuck him. And that's why she's like all of a sudden infatuated with
Yeah.
him.
Maybe. All right, what's your favorite kill? Good luck.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of kills in this movie that would be number one kills in a lot of movies that we've covered.
Yeah.
I gotta say, the guy in the beginning whose skeleton literally rips through his body
It's a
and
good one.
starts attacking people is like the practical effects portion of that, which is pretty much the entire skeleton ripping out, was absolutely amazing. A close second would have to be the piano wire literally like ripping off the head and crushing it. Definitely two fucking super solid kills.
Yeah, it's interesting. So my favorite kill was Persian Man 3, who has his skeleton come alive and rip out of his body. That's one of the coolest things I've ever seen. My second, I was like, honestly, I don't know if I had to pick, it'd be the Piano Man, but I pretty much left it as a tie between Piano Man, Neck Tentacle Guy, Twisty Face Guy, and Violinist Guy.
Yeah.
I mean, dude, how do you choose?
A lot of good and the mannequin. Like, although that didn't
Yeah.
look great, like psychologically, when you see that I think that's why he doesn't cash in on the souls immediately, is he wants her to suffer.
Good call. All right, what's your rating?
So I gave this movie a 3.9. I think this thing is headlined by an absolute all-star cast and crew, which from horror, it's almost a love letter to horror. The shining star of this thing is 100% the practical effects team. The makeup department killed it. The score by Harry Manfredini, although completely kind of overlooked, I thought was amazing. The cinematography, especially the lighting portion of that, was fantastic. I love the story. and the slick ways that they were able to do some of the very unique kills, although some of the story is kind of weak, like, it has some stuff in there we don't need.
Definitely.
Getting Angus Scrum to come in and narrate, I thought was fantastic. With all that said, I think that this movie was severely hurt by the time it came out. CGI was way overused, and the CGI that's in it looks awful. And it's really crushing with the amount of super talented practical effect artists that they had on this movie. Like, the CGI stuff was not needed. The score being completely overshadowed by the mainstream popular music tracks at the end, I thought was a shame. That would have never happened prior to the '90s. And then, I've talked about it earlier in the episode, but horror of this time has a feel like everything after Scream had that very, bright. It was all shot. It all has the same feel. It's hard to
House on
explain.
Haunted Hill, urban legend. Yeah,
Yeah,
I know.
yeah, they have that feel, and I think if you took this same movie and you gave it a darker tone and a much, much more, like, you put the score out there a lot heavier and you had only practical effects and you cut the need for CGI, I think this movie would be a juggernaut.
We actually talked about that when we did the House on Haunted Hill episode, because we were like, this would be a good movie if they wouldn't have tried to stylize it so much and use so much CGI,
Yeah.
which was just the thing at the time.
Yeah, every one of those things I mentioned is all big studio things that were very time specific that I don't think anybody who actually made the movie had a part in. I'm sure it was after the movie was shot and it was people in the studio, for example, adding Motorhead instead of the actual score at the end, having these very, like, ridiculous CGI moments. That's even proven more that the whole Kane Hodder death scene, the fact that you said that there's an actual death scene where he actually shatters as real glass. They obviously went back in post and changed that to be ridiculous CGI.
Yeah.
So, this was all stuff that had nothing to do with the people who actually made the movie or worked on the movie, and it was all stuff that was added post. I think this movie coming out in, say, 1987 instead of 97 would have been a much better movie.
Yeah, so my initial watch, I wrote it down. It's funny you say that. I wrote it down as a 3.9. My second watch, I rated it a 4.1, and I'll kind of explain why. But I think the movie's campy as hell. It's extremely 90s stylized, but the bones of it is 80s. It has grade A practical effects. It's filled with horror icons, and it has a really cool and unique villain, which is a formula that makes for a very entertaining movie. Now, as a film, it is certainly not a 4-star film, but watching this as a horror fan, this thing's fun as hell. I mean, I couldn't think of what else they could have added that would make it more fun. It does have its problems. The acting is a little weak with some of the characters. The characters themselves are, not great. They don't really make sense. The story is very streamlined and simplified, and the CGI stuff aged horribly. But there's so much good stuff and creative ideas that I'm willing to look past that. It is a super fun movie. I'm definitely looking forward to checking out the sequel. This was a fantastic pick by Angie. Thank you for that. And the reason I gave it a 4.1 was because I really saw, before I researched it, it looks like real horror fans made the movie. I kind of got a feeling with the effects from that. And then researching it, I was like, they did. I mean, these guys put in 200% to make this a good fucking movie. And I bumped it up a little bit because I felt like I could feel that when I watched it.
Yeah, I think if you took uh the casting and some of the weaker elements of the story and the score being toned down and all the stuff that the studio had a hand in, and if we had the same movie that the people who made it wanted the final product to be,
Yeah.
I feel like this movie would be 4.5. Like, if
Banger.
you had
Yeah.
if you had this movie that wasn't done in the late 90s, made by the same people with the same effects, and you took the CGI out of it, and you took the lame character things that they did, it would be really fucking good, man.
Yeah. Well, that's our opinion on Wishmaster. Once again, we thank you guys for listening. Please give us a follow or like if you enjoy the show. Check out the website, check out the socials, tell a friend, a family member, or an evil genie about the show, and we hope to see you next time.